Judge Williams slammed his gavel and laughed. "Mr. Reeves, this is a courtroom, not a movie set. Your dramatic testimony is dismissed." The entire courtroom gasped. But in exactly 47 minutes, FBI agents would storm in with handcuffs meant for the judge himself. The morning had started like any other at the Superior Court of Madison County. The hallways echoed with the footsteps of lawyers, witnesses, and families seeking justice. But in courtroom 7, something extraordinary was about to unfold that would shake the entire judicial system to its core. Keanu Reeves sat in the witness stand, dressed in a simple black suit, his expression serious and respectful. He had come to testify in the case of Maria Santos, a single mother of 3 who had been struck by a drunk driver while crossing the street. The driver, Thomas Brennan, was the son of a wealthy real estate developer with deep connections throughout the city. Maria now lay in a coma at Madison General Hospital, her medical bills mounting while her children stayed with their grandmother. Keanu had witnessed the entire accident. He'd been walking out of a coffee shop when he saw Brennan's Mercedes SUV run the red light and slam into Maria as she crossed legally in the crosswalk. "Mr. Reeves," the prosecutor, Jennifer Chang, began, "can you tell the court what you witnessed on the morning of March 15th? Keanu leaned forward slightly, his voice clear and steady. "I was leaving Carmen's Coffee at approximately 8:45 a.m. I heard tires screeching and looked up to see a black Mercedes SUV accelerating through a red light. The victim, Miss Santos, was already halfway across the crosswalk when—" "Oh, please," Judge Williams interrupted, rolling his eyes dramatically. The 60-year-old judge, with his silver hair and expensive robes, looked more like a television judge than a real one. "Mr. Reeves, we're all impressed that a Hollywood celebrity graced us with his presence, but can we skip the theatrical delivery?" The courtroom fell silent. Jennifer Chang looked stunned. "Your Honor, the witness is simply answering the question." "The witness," Judge Williams said with undisguised contempt, "is an actor. Someone paid to pretend for a living. How do we know this isn't just another performance?" Keanu remained composed, though his jaw tightened slightly. "Your Honor, I understand your skepticism, but I'm simply telling you what I saw. A woman was seriously injured. Allegedly saw," the judge corrected. "Tell me, Mr. Reeves, how many action movies have you made? 20? 30? How many times have you pretended to be shot, to fight, to witness crimes, and now you expect us to believe you just happened to witness this accident?" Defense attorney Robert Pike stood up, barely concealing a smirk. "Your Honor makes an excellent point. Mr. Reeves's testimony should be viewed with extreme skepticism given his profession." Jennifer Chang was on her feet immediately. "Objection! The witness's profession has no bearing on his credibility as an eyewitness." "Overruled," Judge Williams said quickly. "The jury should absolutely consider that this man makes millions pretending to be someone he's not." Keanu took a breath, maintaining his composure despite the obvious bias. "Your Honor, Maria Santos has 3 children. They deserve justice. I saw Thomas Brennan run that red light. I saw him stumble out of his car, clearly intoxicated. I waited with Miss Santos until the ambulance—" "Mr. Reeves," Judge Williams interrupted again, his voice dripping with mockery. "This is a courtroom, not a movie set. Your dramatic testimony is dismissed." The entire courtroom gasped. Several jurors looked at each other in confusion. The court reporter stopped typing, looking up at the judge in disbelief. "Your Honor," Jennifer Chang said, her voice shaking with controlled anger, "you cannot simply dismiss eyewitness testimony without cause." "I just did," Judge Williams replied coldly. "Mr. Reeves, you're excused. And Miss Chang, unless you have any credible witnesses, I suggest you consider dropping this case." Keanu stood slowly from the witness stand. As he did, his eyes met those of Thomas Brennan, who was smiling smugly from the defendant's table. But Keanu's gaze lingered on something else, A man in a dark suit sitting in the back row, typing intently on his phone. "This isn't right," Keanu said quietly, but loud enough for the court reporter to capture. "That woman deserves justice." "Mr. Reeves," Judge Williams said, his face reddening, "remove yourself from my courtroom before I hold you in contempt." Keanu walked toward the exit, but before leaving he turned back. "Your Honor, I hope you remember this moment, because everyone in this room will." "Is that a threat?" Judge Williams stood up, his face now purple with rage. "No, Your Honor," Keanu replied calmly. "It's a promise that truth has a way of surfacing, no matter how deep you try to bury it." As Keanu left the courtroom, the man in the dark suit made a phone call. "We got it all," he said quietly. "Williams just gave us everything we need." Outside the courthouse, Keanu was met by Jennifer Chang, who had rushed out after requesting a recess. "Mr. Reeves, I'm so sorry. Judge Williams has never behaved like this before. I mean, he's always been tough, but this was corrupt," Keanu finished. "Miss Chang, can we speak privately?" They walked to a quiet corner of the courthouse steps. Keanu looked around carefully before speaking. That man in the back row of the courtroom, dark suit, taking notes. "Did you notice him?" Jennifer frowned. "No, I was focused on your testimony." "Why?" "Because I've seen him before. 3 weeks ago, he approached me after I gave my statement to the police. He showed me an FBI badge and asked if I'd be willing to testify, knowing that my testimony might be challenged." Jennifer's eyes widened. "The FBI? But why would they?" "Miss Chang, what do you know about Thomas Brennan's father?" "Richard Brennan. He's a real estate developer, very wealthy, very connected, very generous to Judge Williams' re-election campaigns," Keanu added. "The FBI agent told me they've been investigating Williams for 2 years. Bribery, case-fixing, extortion. But they needed something concrete, something that would show his corruption in action. And dismissing your testimony without cause is exactly what they needed," Keanu confirmed, "especially when it's recorded in official court transcripts." Jennifer looked back at the courthouse, her mind racing. "But Maria Santos, her case will get justice," Keanu assured her. "Just not today." 40 minutes after Keanu had left the courtroom, Judge Williams was feeling quite pleased with himself. He had successfully protected Richard Brennan's son, just as he'd been paid to do. The $500,000 that had been wired to his offshore account would ensure his comfortable retirement. He was reviewing other cases in his chambers when his door burst open. His secretary, Patricia, looked terrified. "Judge Williams, there are federal agents here. They're demanding to see you." Jennifer's eyes widened. "The FBI? But why would they?" "Miss Chang, what do you know about Thomas Brennan's father?" "Richard Brennan. He's a real estate developer, very wealthy, very connected, very generous to Judge Williams' re-election campaigns," Keanu added. "The FBI agent told me they've been investigating Williams for 2 years. Bribery, case-fixing, extortion. But they needed something concrete, something that would show his corruption in action. And dismissing your testimony without cause is exactly what they needed," Keanu confirmed, "especially when it's recorded in official court transcripts." Jennifer looked back at the courthouse, her mind racing. "But Maria Santos, her case will get justice," Keanu assured her. "Just not today." 40 minutes after Keanu had left the courtroom, Judge Williams was feeling quite pleased with himself. He had successfully protected Richard Brennan's son, just as he'd been paid to do. The $500,000 that had been wired to his offshore account would ensure his comfortable retirement. He was reviewing other cases in his chambers when his door burst open. His secretary, Patricia, looked terrified. "Judge Williams, there are federal agents here. They're demanding to see you." Before Williams could respond, 3 FBI agents entered his chambers. The lead agent, Special Agent David Chen. The same man who had been sitting in the courtroom held up his badge. "Judge Harold Williams, you're under arrest for bribery, corruption, obstruction of justice, and violation of your judicial oath." Williams jumped to his feet. "This is ridiculous. You can't just—" "We can and we are," Agent Chen said, pulling out handcuffs. "We have recordings of you accepting bribes, documentation of offshore accounts, and as of this morning, clear evidence of you dismissing credible testimony to protect a defendant whose father paid you $500,000. That actor's testimony? You're arresting me because of Keanu Reeves." "We're arresting you because you're corrupt," Agent Chen corrected. "Mr. Reeves' testimony was just the final piece of evidence we needed. You see, Judge Williams, we knew you couldn't resist showing your bias against him. A celebrity witness threatening your carefully controlled courtroom. We counted on your arrogance." As the handcuffs clicked around Williams's wrists, he realized the truth. This was a setup. You used Reeves as bait. "Mr. Reeves volunteered to testify, knowing you would likely dismiss him," Agent Chen explained. "Every word, every dismissive comment, every violation of judicial procedure, it's all on record. You didn't just expose your bias, you exposed your entire operation." The agents led Williams out through the courthouse's main entrance, where dozens of reporters had already gathered. Cameras flashed, questions were shouted, and Judge Harold Williams' decades-long career ended in complete humiliation. "Judge Williams, did you take bribes? How many cases did you fix? What's your connection to Richard Brennan?" As Williams was put into the federal vehicle, he saw Keanu Reeves standing across the street, watching quietly. Their eyes met for a moment, and Williams finally understood. This hadn't been about one case or one testimony. This had been about justice, real justice. That evening, the news exploded with the story. Federal judge arrested in massive corruption scandal dominated every headline. The investigation revealed that Williams had taken over $10 million in bribes over his career, affecting hundreds of cases. Jennifer Chang appeared on the evening news. "Judge Williams' arrest means that dozens of cases will need to be reviewed. Every defendant who may have benefited from his corruption will face new trials, and every victim who was denied justice will get their day in court." The reporter asked, "What about the Santos case?" "Thomas Brennan will face a new trial with a new judge. And this time, Mr. Reeves's testimony will be heard and respected." 3 days later, Richard Brennan was also arrested. The FBI's investigation had uncovered a web of corruption that included 3 judges, 2 prosecutors, and 7 police officers. The scandal became known as the Madison County Conspiracy, one of the largest judicial corruption cases in U.S. history. Keanu Reeves, meanwhile, had quietly paid for Maria Santos's medical bills and set up a trust fund for her children's education. When reporters tried to interview him about his role in exposing the corruption, he declined most requests. He did, however, give one brief statement. "I just wanted to tell the truth about what I saw. Every witness deserves to be heard, regardless of their profession, and every victim deserves justice, regardless of their attacker's connections." 6 months later, Thomas Brennan was convicted of vehicular assault and DUI in a fair trial. He received 8 years in prison. Judge Williams was sentenced to 15 years in federal prison for his crimes. His offshore accounts were seized, and the money was used to establish a fund for victims whose cases had been affected by his corruption. Maria Santos eventually woke from her coma. When she learned about everything that had happened, the corruption, the arrests, and Keanu's role in it all, she asked to meet him. They met at a small cafe near the hospital. Maria's recovery was slow but steady, and she walked with a cane. Her children were with her, shy but curious about the man who had helped their mother. "Mr. Reeves," Maria said, tears in her eyes, "they told me what you did, how you stood up to that judge, how you helped expose everything." "I just told the truth," Keanu said softly. "You deserved that much. But he dismissed you. He mocked you. That must have been humiliating." Keanu smiled gently. Sometimes being dismissed is exactly what needs to happen for the truth to emerge. Judge Williams thought he was silencing me, but he was actually writing his own confession. Maria's oldest child, Sophia, who was 12, looked up at Keanu. "Were you scared?" "No," Keanu replied. "I was angry. When powerful people hurt innocent ones, fear isn't useful, but controlled anger, the kind that leads to justice rather than revenge, that can change everything." "No," Agent Chen replied. "He said something I'll never forget. He said, 'Sometimes the best acting is when you're not acting at all, when you're just being a human being who gives a damn.'" Williams never forgot those words. They haunted him through every day of his 15-year sentence. Meanwhile, Keanu Reeves continued his life, taking movie roles, riding his motorcycles, and occasionally showing up in unexpected places to help those in need. He never spoke publicly about the Williams case again, but in law schools across the country, it became a famous case study, the actor's testimony that brought down a corrupt judge. The case changed how witnesses were treated in courtrooms across America. The Reeves Standard was established, a legal principle stating that no witness should be dismissed based on their profession, only on the credibility of their testimony itself. Jennifer Chang, who had prosecuted the Santos case, was appointed as a federal prosecutor specializing in judicial corruption. In her office, she kept a photo from the day justice was served, not of Williams being arrested, but of Maria Santos walking out of the hospital, surrounded by her children, finally heading home. And somewhere in Los Angeles, Keanu Reeves kept a simple letter in his desk drawer. It was from Sophia Santos, Maria's daughter. It read, "Mr. Reeves, my mom is walking again. She's home with us. Thank you for being brave when the judge was mean to you. My teacher says that's what heroes do. They stay brave even when powerful people try to make them small. You're not just an action hero in movies, you're a real hero. Thank you for saving my mom. Sophia." That letter, Keanu would later tell a close friend, meant more to him than any award he'd ever received.